Erie. It's Monday, September 23rd. Welcome back for another Flagship City Sports Talk brought to you by Quick Fill. My name is Nick Artman. And as always, I'm joined by the Honorable Paul Adamczak. Paul, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. Got to spend some time, a little bit in Akron this weekend, a little bit in Erie. My wife and I got to meet our newest nephew. Cameron was born last Wednesday in the wee hours of the morning. So it was a real fun for us. Fun weekend for us.
The best part about like a new niece or nephew is that like you get to hold them, you get to love on them, but then you give them back. You don't have the sleepless nights ahead of you like us parents do.
That's true. And I will say I got to hold him for a couple of minutes. And then when I gave him over to Mimi, my mom, he was in as good a shape as when he was given to me. So I did nothing wrong. He slept well. He's a good baby. He's cute.
You've done your job as an uncle.
Yeah, exactly.
And in the big chair, we have the great and powerful Rich Smith. Rich, how was the weekend, man?
Not bad. Very, very tiring working on an Eagle Scout project for another kid in our troops.
Yeah.
So, there was a lot of building going on where my Cameron, my son, great name, by the way. I got to give them props for the good pick. He started a trades program. He was in his element.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
So
I saw your pictures on Facebook. You guys were like, it looked like building like a dugout or something like that.
Yeah, it's like a garage for like a gator for a local camp.
Yep. No, that's really cool. Nice. You know, Rich and camping, as if we should have guessed that. Yeah.
Anyway,
and joining us for another week, we have our good friend Isaac Petcash from Erie News Now. Isaac, how you doing, buddy?
Good, gentlemen. Weekend went by really, really quickly. I will say that I did not spend my time as wisely as you guys did. I literally sat around and watched football yesterday, hung out with the wife and the kid. And the big story for me the weekend was my son's grandparents, so my mom and stepdad, brought over this inflatable bouncy house. So we now only have half of our backyard left.
Yeah.
This thing is crazy. You literally have to have like 2 air funnels to blow this thing up, and they have to be running constantly. And you couldn't imagine the number of times that he was jumping up and down, just having a blast. But now every time I have to cut my grass, I have to spend 20 minutes cleaning this thing up.
Well, that's going to be my next question is, are you the dad that sits there going, oh my gosh, this is going to kill all my grass? Or are you the dad that's going, that's less than I got to mow?
I'm the dad that if I was a few pounds lighter, I'd be in there with them. Are you kidding me? Those things were sweet. I remember being a kid and loving bouncy houses. So if the weight limit was a little higher, I'm sure I'd be a part of it.
I feel that. We got one something like that for my son for his birthday over the summer, and I was like, sweet, this is just less I have to mow, buddy. I'm fine with it. Let's just fill the yard. We'll be that neighbor. Anyway, we got a good show planned for today. We're going to be talking District 10 football. I mean, a lot of football. We're in the depths of it. We're going to be talking about some Seawolves. We're going to be talking through. We got Shawn Bednard coming joining the show today to give us a preview for the upcoming Erie Otters season. So we got a lot to get to. So enough about us. Let's talk some sports. Let's get into the North Shore Rewind, brought to you by Duska's Funeral Home. And I want to start here. I want to, this will kind of be our normal running segment here throughout the rest of the D10 season. But let's just go around the horn and let's kind of pick our, favorite, pick a player or a team you want to highlight over the weekend. And I'm going to go first because Isaac stole mine last week, so I don't want to give him the chance to steal it this week. But I want to go and I want to talk about, we talked about him last week, but I want to talk about Vinny, the Don Feliciano here.
To make him an offer he can't refuse.
Feliciano had 29 carries for 270 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground. But that's not it. Then he adds on another 23-yard touchdown catch for the Lakers this weekend. Another 4-touchdown performance. This game was everything you want it to be going up against Harbor Creek. That sounds like a blowout, right? But Feliciano scores 4 touchdowns, and it's Prep's goal line stand that actually wins the game for them in the final seconds, 26-20 win over Harbor Creek. I mean, how tough is this to have back-to-back 4-touchdown games on the ground?
At any level of football, it's hard to go over 100 yards rushing in a game. At any level of football, it's an incredible achievement to go over 200 yards rushing in a game.
Yep.
At any level of football, it's insane to go over 300 yards and not be the quarterback. And I mean, really, if you're a quarterback throwing or running for a 300 total, that's crazy too.
Yeah.
But to do it as a running back,
Yeah.
29 carries, 279 yards, and a 23. He's got 302 yards, and he's still averaging 10 yards a carry. It's wild. That's wild. You're not supposed to do that. Vinny the Dawn, great nickname, by the way.
Yeah.
I got to give you all the props on that one, Nick. Back-to-back games, and we talked about it like after the first week of the season, how Coach Jeff Root and that team, not a whole lot of playmakers coming back, but they had the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. And it was only a matter of time that if you can dominate the line of scrimmage, you can figure out how to win games. And I think he's found his guy in the Don Feliciano. 4 touchdowns in back-to-back weeks. Mercyhurst is going to be a tough out the rest of the season.
They won 3 in a row and have another big test against Corey next week. We'll talk more about Corey here in a little bit.
Yeah.
But no, and listen, don't be in my comments saying, "Oh, his name's not Don Feliciano in the show title." Yeah, I know it's a joke. Listen to the episode. Speaking of comments, before I throw it to Paul for his player of the week, we have the phone lines open today. So if you want to talk about a player, a team here in District 10, or if you want to, we're going to get into some Steelers and Browns talk later on. Should Fields be the starter? Give us a call. That's 814-679-1080. That's 679-1080. Give us a call and we'll get you on the air. Paul, let me throw it to you. Who's your D10 team or player of the week?
I have 4 written down here, and I'm just going to go in order.
No, just give me one.
So I'm going to say top of the list. I have Titusville is my team, and I have them in all caps. Is 4 straight blowouts now after that season opening narrow loss to Corey, who, as you just said, it's a very good team. Rockets will have their hands full the rest of the season, though. They'll get Northeast this upcoming week, which Northeast is okay, sort of a rebuilding year. Yeah. But after Northeast, here's the schedule: Hickory, Slippery Rock, Sharon, Fairview to end the season. Titusville, very, very good senior-laden team. They're going to be in 4 really good games to finish out the season, but a 56-0 rout this weekend down in Franklin. Titusville is my team of the week.
Yeah. Oh, again, a team that we don't think of.
I know,
right? Like I don't think of Titusville a lot, or even necessarily go back and follow. Maybe that, maybe
Titusville, are they technically Erie County or Crawford County? Titusville's Crawford County, right?
I think Crawford County. Yeah.
Okay, so they're sort of the southern tip of District 10, but I mean, you put up 2, I think they've outscored 96-0 in 2 of their last 3 games.
Yeah.
So
that's good.
That's good. Yes.
All right, Isaac, you're up. Let's throw it to you for your team or player of the week.
Boys, you're missing the obvious one. And that are the Cardiac kids and the team that I think in District 10 has the best fourth quarter ability out of anybody. How about the Fort LaBeouf Bison? They just continue to win games late when it matters. They beat Grove City this weekend 21-17 in a game that we talked about, Paul, you and I on the Critical Eye. I put an overreaction out there, and I said, look, if LaBeouf goes and wins this game in Mercer County, they and others, I think, are going to have the inside straight, non-Mercer County teams, that is, to be a top 3 seed in Class 3A. Fort LaBeouf and Titusville are right there. This Bison team now have 4 wins by 1 possession. They've won 4 straight games, and they now have 2 wins while stopping their opponent inside the 10-yard line with no time left. I mean, this team is this team is so fundamentally sound with Justin Blows. It's unbelievable. And the way they do it is old school, right? Damian Blows, 2 rushing touchdowns in Friday's win. Dom Walters, I think at a 70-yarder was the official yardage on it. And the defense just played amazing. I mean, you look at what they've been able to do in the last 4 games on defense, even 3 if you discount the Farrell game. 13 points allowed to Corey, 23 to Northeast. 14 of those were late in the fourth quarter in what you consider garbage time. And 17 to a Grove City offense that in the last 2 years has pummeled them when they have played. So a huge credit to the Bison. And I think you look at the way this schedule shapes out, especially for the rest of the region. Fairview is going to be the huge game, but I think right now the Bison are in the driver's seat to potentially win Region 5 with all respect to Fairview, who's right there as well. But guys, I'll tell you what, if you're foreshadowing the matchups coming up this weekend, Fort LaBeouf, General McLean, get your butt to Waterford because you have 2 teams that have so contrastingly different play styles. But I would argue outside of Prep McDowell, it's the biggest rivalry in Erie County. With respect to Fairview, Girard, Harbor Creek Northeast, these 2 teams do not like each other.
Yep.
The schools and some of the personnel of the schools do not like each other. It's going to be an awesome game. And every time they play, it's seemingly a 1-possession game.
Yeah, that's definitely a game we're going to be looking at for next week. I mean, GM has another, maybe a different type of game for them. You wanted to see them gut one out, and they did this last week against Corey. But this is the craziest stat for me coming out of Fort LaBeouf that game. And this is per Go Erie. Damian Blost ran for 139 yards and 2 touchdowns on 23 carries. And then quarterback Dominic Walters had 5 carries for 105 yards and a TD as the Bison won without completing a pass.
What year is it?
But I mean, that's how they.
It's that too high safety.
That's how they do it. I mean, and you know what? I think for a lot of teams that have gone to the spread formation college style offense, LaBeouf's doing it old school, and they're winning with it, and that's really awesome.
Yep, I love it. It's fun to think, the run game is back at all levels of football. I'm here for it. All right, that was the North Shore Rewind brought to you by Dustin's Funeral Home. We got to take a break, but when we get back, we're going to check in on the Seawolves' run to a repeat in the Eastern League playoffs. You're listening to Flagship City Sports Talk, brought to you by Quick Fill. Welcome back to Flagship City Sports Talk, brought to you by Quick Fill. Gosh, I feel like, Paul, you said this as soon as we went to break. Such a short amount of time, and there's so much D10 football happening. There's so many good players. So, of course, we're not going to hit everybody every week. Let us know who we missed. You can send us a comment, follow along on the stream. That's on YouTube, Facebook, anywhere you want to look us up. We are live right now. Send us a comment. Or, this is a little old school, but you can make calls on that little box you call a cell phone. And you can give us a call at 814.
Rotary phone, whatever you got.
Oh, my gosh. Could you imagine? Does anybody still have a rotary phone? Do you ever see those videos? These are sorry, this is squirrel moment here. You got me going. I love those Gen Z versus millennial videos when they give Gen Z a rotary phone and try to get dial this number and they just can't figure their heads explode. Yeah. So anyway, if you have a rotary phone, give us a call 679-1080 679-1080. We're going to get into some NFL stuff later on. But before we do, we have playoff baseball happening again for the third year in a row. Seawolves are making their way through the playoffs. And we talked about this last week, maybe a little hesitant. Could they get back into the championship series? But here we are, gents. Game 1 of the championship series was last night. Erie's up 1-0. They just need one more game to take this championship, back-to-back repeat. Isaac, I'm going to throw it to you first because you had eyes on the field. actually at the games. What's this team looking like? What are our reactions here as we move into the championship?
Man, Gabe Alvarez is something else. He managed his butt off like nobody else, and it's a travesty. It's great for Erie, and it's a travesty that he's not further up in the ranks. I'll tell you what, going back to the Akron series, the way Game 2 ended, I think any team could have easily crumbled. Erie made 3 errors in the 10th inning. They gave up 3 runs. They basically self-destructed after tying the game at 4 in the 9th inning and had the winning run on second with 2 outs. And for Gabe Alvarez to calm his team down, as Sam Lebowitz told me before the game on Friday, have that demeanor where they come in, they don't put up a boatload of runs, they go up 2-1 in the bottom of the 5th inning, then the bullpen shuts it down. And then Chris Myers, I don't know if you guys have seen it yet, making arguably the greatest defensive play that certainly I've seen in my lifetime and maybe in Seawolves playoff history, with a diving catch out and left that doubles up the tying run at second base in the 9th inning. And then last night, Somerset comes to town. This is a team with a bunch of big bats. They have, to me, one of the best prospects, not just that's in Double-A right now, but in all of minor league baseball. And Spencer Jones is at the top of the lineup. Erie goes down 4-2 in the 5th inning. It looks like they have no chance in this game. They gave up runs in each of the first 3 innings. And then what do? They chip away 3 runs in the bottom of the 5th inning, and then a gigantic 3 RBI double by Carlos Mendoza, who's been a big part of the leadoff game for the Seawolves this season. They win 9-5, and now they're 1 win away, and the bullpen, which was an issue for Erie early in the season, has now become a strength. Last night, the bullpen, after Wilkel Hernandez got pulled in the 3rd inning, they go 7 innings of 1-run baseball. They allow 4 total hits. They were tremendous. The offense, despite the injuries, is finding a way to put across runs. And here they are again, knocking on the door. It doesn't matter who they have in the lineup. Gabe Alvarez is just able to have a knack for winning games when it matters most. And if they win one of the next 2, Tuesday or Wednesday, they're champions for the 2nd straight year. First time since 2007, 2008, when Trenton did it, that would be the case.
I think you hit the nail on the head, because my first point here, Isaac, was I just have Gabe Alvarez, a lethal mix of stud poker player and like 3-card Monty dealer, because you never really know. I think he's a bit of a shyster. Where was this team all year? He had this stuff up his sleeve the entire time, manages to kind of keep expectations low. Maybe they'll do it, maybe they won't. The bullpen is here, there. They lose Jackson Jobe, they lose the big bats to an injury late in the season, and then this is the kind of performance when the lights are brightest. He's able to manage this team brilliantly against a team, Somerset, who Erie had a losing record against during the regular season.
Yeah. Do you think that's a benefit of locking up that playoff berth, like at the midway point of the season, where you can kind of just like, not that you're playing soft, but you can kind of play around with the lineup, play around with the bullpen, and then knowing that you can kind of save it for the playoffs? I don't know that he did. I'm just throwing it out there as a scenario.
That's an interesting take. I didn't really think about it that way.
The pressure's off. You know what I mean? You don't have to worry about making the playoffs.
That's an interesting point. Isaac, what do you think?
It's interesting because for the last 2 years, Erie has won the first half of the season. And I think there's a bit of a concern there. Number one, because of a second half letdown. I think that's been something that Gabe Alvarez has talked about not wanting to happen the last 2 years. Erie didn't let down last season. They were able to win the division in both halves of the season last year.
Yeah.
And this year, because of the injuries, it just fell a bit back. Akron ended up dominating. But I think there was always an understanding that knowing you're in the playoffs, you have something now to work towards and look towards. And I think for Erie in that second half, for Gabe Alvarez, it was about making sure the pitching staff was set, because they admitted mid-season they expected Jackson Jobe to be called up. I don't think there was any indication that Jobe would be on this roster come playoff time. So you start to work into some different guys. Carlos Pena threw an exceptional game in game number 2. And then in game number 3, when they had the opener, Jake Higginbotham, the lefty, he goes 1-2-3. And then Garrett Burhan comes in and has a nice outing and only gives up 1 run. So I think the bullpen was able to become a strength really at the ending point in the season, when they were a liability in July and the beginning of August. And then you look at this offensive lineup, despite the loss of How You Lee, Jake Holton, other guys that have been big parts of this offense. they still continue to produce. I think you look at Gage Workman, who's having an MVP caliber season. He hasn't been great in the playoffs, but he's been a big part of the offense. Austin Murr hitting second, who was at the bottom of the order for the majority of the season, hitting ninth. He's been a big part. Chris Myers hits a home run last night. So this is a team that can find ways to score despite losing all their players. And now a chance to, if we go back to recent history, guys, an opportunity for the Seawolves to exact some revenge from 2022. They're in the exact same spot they were 2 years ago, up 1-0 over Somerset, heading back to TD Bank Ballpark. And all that happened is that they were outscored 24-2 in those games and were no hit in game 3. So I think there's going to be some revenge on the mind for the Seawolves and what may be Gabe Alvarez's final game as manager in Erie. They're going to want to win this for sure, and I think that they're going to be much better positioned this time around to win game 2 or game 3 than they were 2 seasons ago. Yeah, no, it's going to be interesting too. And you know, before we throw it to Paul for the 2-minute drill, the lineup is what's sticking out to me too. It's like, yeah, Workman's had an MVP type year, but then, you know, you have Myers hitting home runs, you have Mendoza had 4 hits in yesterday's game too. So, you know, the bats are working, 1 win away, and we're talking about another Eastern League championship. So really quickly too, Nick, and I'll just take 30 seconds on this before we go. The defense since game 2 of that division series has been tremendous. They had a couple of big plays in game 3. We talked about the play from Chris Myers. No errors again last night. And the defense is having to play out of position. Chris Myers, traditional first baseman, has moved to left field. Austin Mers at first base, and Liam Hicks catching. So Carlos Mendoza, traditional catcher, now at third. So the defense has been great too. Looking forward to it. All right, Paul, you ready? 2 minutes, all the news we didn't get to.
All right, here's the 2-minute drill. Kayla McBride, 20 points, 3 rebounds, and 4 Mercury, 102.95. McBride, who's won a number of championships worldwide, is seeking her first WNBA crown. The Pitt football team remains undefeated after a 73-17 drubbing of Youngstown State over the weekend. It's the first time they've been 4-0 since the year 2000. The last they scored 70 points was in 2021 versus UNH. Penn State football has yet to drop a game themselves this season, blowing out poor Kent State 56-0 on Saturday. New OC Andy Kotelnicki in the offense set the single-game yardage record for the 138-year-old program with 718. Guys, here's the stat of the week. Penn State is the first Big Ten team this century to outgain an opponent by 600 yards. They were plus 651 on Saturday.
Set a program record, 718 total yards, and they held the Golden Flash to just 67 yards and 6 first downs.
He used 3 different quarterbacks. It was rough to watch. The Edinburgh Fighting Scots dropped a heartbreaker to Bloomsburg on Saturday, allowing the go-ahead game-winning touchdown with 34 seconds left. After taking the lead with just over a minute to play, the Fighting Scots dropped to 1-3. Will travel to Slippery Rock next Saturday for a 6 p.m. kickoff. In girls cross-country news, Lauren Deaver and McDowell ran to a 4th-place individual finish in a time of 19 minutes, 7.5 seconds that highlighted the Trojans' first-place finish in the team standings at the Adidas Cross Country Challenge in Cary, North Carolina. How about over to women's college tennis? Mercyhurst women's tennis had a standout debut at the NEC Fall Tournament. Kayla Dean and Royshan Murphy, a couple of names we've mentioned on this program for 2 years now, won the doubles championship, and Kayla Dean reached the singles finals in Flight A before falling to FDU's Naomi Isago.
Any chance you get? You and Isaac, just going to throw in some tennis talk.
We got to throw in some. Well, they're good.
Quit hating.
They're very good.
This is supposed to be a happy Monday. Quit hating. By the way, Team Europe winning the Laver Cup after Team World have won it 2 years in a row.
There you go.
There we go.
Hey, that's spectacular.
I'd love to have the tennis talk, but we got to get out of here. Before we take our break, though, I want to take a second to thank all of our sponsors: Quick Fill, Duskus Funeral Home, Dauber Auto Supply, John's Wildwood Pizza, Denny's Sales and Service. Without them, we wouldn't be here for you. When we get back, we welcome Shawn Bednard of the Erie Otters. I'm excited. Hockey's coming back. Fall is here. The weather is changing. I'm excited.
I can't wait to sit inside the Erie Insurance Arena.
You're listening to Flagship City Sports Talk, brought to you by Quick Fill. Welcome back. You're listening to Flagship City Sports Talk, brought to you by Quick Fill. We've been talking a lot of football, which is great. You know, if you've listened to this show at any point in time, you know we're loving the chance to talk about football. But we talked about fall is in the air. It's a little cooler out there today, so we thought it would be a good time to talk some hockey. Talk some hockey. Otters are coming back. And to help us out with that, we welcome back to the show Shawn Bednard of the Erie Otters. Shawn, welcome back. How you doing, my friend?
Well, I know that last night was about the last full night of sleep that I'm going to get for a while, so I try to take as much advantage of as I could, but I'm great. I mean, this is the best time of the year. You mentioned it. Football's back, which is huge. Seawolves going to the championship series and actually up in the championship series, and now the Erie Otters get to take the proverbial mantle from the Seawolves at the end of this week and try and go on their own championship run. So this is the best time of the year, not just here in Erie, but in the sports world. Yeah.
You know what?
Amen, brother.
I couldn't segue that any better myself. So let's just get into it then. We got FanFest coming up, and we can get into all that as we break out of the segment here. But
by the way, Shawn kicking off his promotional tour this week with us this morning. So we appreciate you being with us and starting this thing off.
Was there any other way that I could start things off than with the
answer,
Flagship
Shawn.
City Sports Talk?
That's right. I mean, you could go on the critical eye, but
That's later. We got a 2P to that.
more irrelevant. We got to have the layer of hierarchy here, right?
Let's be clear. If there's a layer of hierarchy, Flagship is very much on the bottom, and we're okay with that. We like being the underdogs.
Chronologically, we're at 9 a.m. Monday. We're first. This is it.
That's the only benefit we have. But Shawn, as we get into, let's just lead with it. We have game one coming up this weekend, home opener, Fan Fist. That would be an interesting event. Fan Fest on the 28th. Why don't you give us a preview of some things to expect as we get into the home opener?
Yeah, no, this is going to be a great week. Obviously, starting off with a playoff rematch on Friday night in Kitchener. Very excited for that one. It's a great building, great rivalry that's budding there, and I don't think it'll set the tone for what the entire season's going to be like, but it sure as heck going to set the tone for what the weekend's going to be like, and that's exciting in its own right. Saturday's a whirlwind, and I think that's the best way to describe it, not just for us, behind the scenes, but for the fans who come in. From 3 o'clock until whenever the game ends on Saturday night, you are filling your brain with just absolute dopamine bombs of live music, family fun, great hockey. You can't beat it. It's the best. And if the weather this weekend is like it was last year, and based on early weather reports, it's looking pretty good so far. We're going to have a hot day. We're going to have a fun day. And by the time you're done sweating and listening to music, you're going to be ready to get inside and get your ice hockey on. So I'm excited. This will be the first time that Brampton, Ontario, has had a franchise play in this league since 2013, 2014. So that's a great hockey city. I know our head coach, he was one of the only coaches in Brampton hockey major junior history for a long time. So there's that connection. But, Saturday's just going to be the culmination of months and months of not just waiting and anticipation, but, the return of one of Erie's great sports.
Yeah. And thinking about coming into the season now, let's kind of hype people up here. I feel like the Otters went on a bit of a run there at the end. The playoff push. We were all excited for playoff hockey back. What is kind of that momentum coming into this season? What are some things that are carrying over? What are some things some fans can look forward to?
Well, I think fans can appreciate the fact that last year's run to the playoffs and finishing top 5 in the Western Conference happened despite all the injuries that we had. And hockey is a sport that's prone to injury as any, and especially in our league, we're a rough, tough, physical league. we were able to take a top 5 spot despite our star goaltender being out until the playoffs started and numerous injuries throughout the course of the year. So first and foremost, if you have any lucky charms, a rabbit's foot, or you just like to cross your fingers, please pray for some health. But this year's team has so much intrigue and excitement. There's multiple NHL prospects, either guys who were drafted or guys who've been to free agent camps and training camps and played preseason games. So that's excitement enough when you get to see big names or future big names, Ty Henry, Martin Mishiak, Carey Terrance, as guys who could be the next guy in the NHL from the Erie Otters. So that's exciting in its own right. And then it's the intrigue of the unknown. Gabriel Frasca coming over from the Kingston Frontenacs for us, a guy who has had a great offensive career in the OHL despite, like we talked about, some of those injuries. Noah Erliden, nationally recognized Swedish goaltender who has done terrific things for Team Sweden at the international level. And then just the new guys, Lucas Ambrosio, Tyler Challenger, and all these young rookies who get that first taste of playoff hockey. And let's not forget the fact that, we're talking about it now in September, and we could be talking about it in June. 2 guys on the Otters who could go first round in the NHL draft, and Matthew Schaefer and Malcolm Spenson. Early projections are saying Matthew Schaefer's not a maybe in the first round. It's how early in the first round. So just when you're talking about potential, that's a dangerous word, I think, sometimes in our league or in sports at large. But the potential of what this team could be, this could be the most exciting Erie hockey team since that 2017 championship season.
Yeah.
I want to stay on with the name recognition. Spencer Sova, captain for the last couple of years, abruptly traded right before training camp instead of pairing him up with last year's first overall pick, Matthew Schaefer. What was the reasoning behind that? Did that have anything to do with picking Tyler Challenger in the first round?
I think ultimately, hockey is it's a sport where unfortunately it's a business as much as it is a personal relationship. And I'll tell you, every guy in that locker room downstairs loves Sova, terrific captain, great player. Unfortunately, in our league, it just comes down to a numbers game. And, we have such a haul of overage players, Sova being one of them, that it ultimately came down to whichever of those guys had to be the guy moved, be it Alfano, Panofima, Spencer Sova, any of those guys, the reaction would have been the same. And it's basically just flipping a coin and saying, okay, who can we put in the best situation for players that we've had, moving them to a new organization? How can we make sure they're out of the Western Conference so we don't have to play them 6 times a year?
Decision,
and who do we move on from that will still allow us to keep the most guys that will give us the best potential to be the best team? And unfortunately, it's hard and it's unique to trade your captain. But I think for Spencer, we put him in a situation where people are talking about Brampton potentially being the team that could win the OHL this season. So I know for them, they're an upstart team with a lot of potential. Great fit for him, little closer to home, which I know is always nice. It's tough. And it's going to be really weird come Saturday night when we see Spencer Sova in the steel blue of the Brampton Steelheads. But I know in my heart of hearts that the decision was made in the most appropriate way that it could be from our general manager, Dave Brown, our head coach, Stan Butler, to be able to do right by the player who was such a big piece for the Otters the last few years, and to make sure that for the player's side that, it's all good memories when he comes back to Erie. It's not the revenge game,
I think he'll get a standing ovation.
And
sure.
we don't want the boo birds out either.
Absolutely. No, Spencer he's A1, his family is terrific. It was tough to move on, but unfortunately that's the game of hockey. And I think both the Otters and Spencer are going to be better because of it.
Sean, let me just say the hair is still perfect at 9:42 on a Monday morning.
Mid-season form.
We'll talk to you on Friday night on the Critical Eye what exactly it's like.
Paul and I don't have that problem.
My hair looks great this morning, too.
Let's talk, Sean, if you would, about the back end. Stan Butler was brought in, I think, to be that defensive-laden coach, right? He had great back ends on his teams in Brampton when he was the head coach there back in the early 2000s and then mid-2000s. Noah Erliden comes in. I think we all agree that outside of Ben Gaudreau, the goaltending was questionable, and I think that's something the Otters are looking to improve this season. What about Erliden specifically? Then maybe the back end can give fans a hope and reason to believe that this team can improve defensively this season.
The biggest thing that I can share not having seen him play in an OHL regular season game, is that when the opportunity of the prospect of him being able to be selected by the Otters became a reality, our general manager and our director of hockey operations were, what word do I want to use? Giddy. I would say giddy would be the best word, just because the pure potential of what he can be at the North American level. He's a smart player. He's an animal in the crease. He's a guy who can go east to west in no time at all. And he just has, the key words here: high hockey IQ, great vision for the game, and just rock steady. When you're playing at the international level, you're playing the best of the best. And seeing the accolades and the statistics of what he was able to do for Team Sweden, if he can translate that to the North American game, which luckily for OHLers, import goalies have typically been able to do, if he can be what he's advertised to be, he should be what, expectations were for Ben Gaudreau to be last year, and Ben Gaudreau certainly lived up to it every time he was on the ice. The best goaltender that the Erie Otters have had in years, decades, and maybe ever. And I think many reasons were said that Ben Gaudreau was that last year. And so I think it comes down to the same thing. If not only we can have a healthy goaltending core, but also knowing that this year, Charlie Burns, who will serve as our backup goaltender, he has another year of development under his belt. The games that he did play for us last year, a shutout against the Guelph Storm at the school day game, beat the London Knights on a sellout in his first game in the OHL level. Expectations are high for him too. And luckily, if he can provide those solid, I don't want to say fill-in games because I think that does disrespect to the position of the backup goaltender. But if when he's in there, he gives the same effort of being able to put the team in a winning position, goaltending should be a lot more steady. And as long as I don't have to write 8, 9, 10 different goaltender names on the roster this season, I'm going to be pretty happy come March.
Now, Shawn, before we wrap up, and you get to do play-by-play for these games as too, so I kind of want to wrap up this segment with this. You've been working on any new goal calls, any new catchphrases you're working on this year? What can we look forward to?
I won't lie to you. I try not to do that because I think sometimes you can tell when it's rehearsed, but there's been one that I keep forgetting to use, and it was created by our group sales manager, RJ, back when we first drafted Malcolm Spence. He said that the first time Malcolm scores in the slot, you have to say, "Malcolm in the middle," and I still have not done that one yet. So look for that one, hopefully game 1 of the season.
All right, we'll see if we can get that figured out for you. Shawn, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We're excited for Otters hockey to be back. Where can we follow along with anything Otters news this year?
Just on our social media, that's the best way to do it. Our social team is one of the best in the OHL, and that's statistically proven. So at Erie Otters on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, they'll be popping off all week, and they're going to be active on Friday night leading you into Saturday.
Love it. Thanks, man. Take care. Have fun. We'll be talking to you soon.
Go Otters. Thanks for having us.
We got to take a break, but when we get back, we're going to get into the Rust Belt Rundown, talking some headlines after NFL games this weekend. You're listening to Flagship City Sports Talk, brought to you by Quickfill.
And we're out.
Welcome back to Flagship City Sports Talk, brought to you by Quick Fill. That was fun. Like you said, Paul, I'm excited.
I'm an Otters fan already.
Yeah.
I didn't need Bednard to come in and raise my expectation level like that.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm fired up.
Yeah. You were working on your computer there on the break. Did you go ahead and buy your tickets for FanFest?
No, you know what I did was I wrote Malcolm in the middle in, and I said I'm going to figure out some way to get that on a T-shirt for Shawn.
We can sell those. We'll put our logo on them. Yeah, we'll start a new.
We'll figure something out.
Yeah. Well, we'll definitely have hockey to talk about next weekend. We're also going to have football, but we got some football to talk about today. We had some big NFL news coming through the weekend. Again, we want to hear from you. Give us a call. What did you think of Fields? Do the Browns have a chance this year still? I don't know. I do know, and you'll find out here in a second. But I want to know if you know. Give us a call. That's 814-679-1080, 679-1080, or send us a comment on the live stream. That's on Facebook, X, Twitter. I'm trying to be better with the X and the YouTube. It's we're part of the Gem City Sports Podcast Network, so look that up and you'll find us. So what we're going to do is I asked the guys, we kind of are going to create another reoccurring segment here throughout the course of the NFL season, and we're going to write our own headlines for each Rust Belt team. And we're going to start with Pittsburgh. Again, I always, get out of my mentions because I'm a homer, but they actually won this weekend. So it's a good place to start. And who wants to go first? You guys want me to go first? All right, Isaac was excited. He's ready to go.
He's ready to call out what I was wrong.
I love you, Paul. I love you, Paul.
Yeah.
All right, week 3 headlines coming out of Pittsburgh. Go ahead, Isaac. You go first.
There is no quarterback debate. Justin Fields must remain the starter going forward. I don't know if you guys haven't seen it by now, and if you haven't, you clearly haven't been watching football. Look, I said at the beginning of the season, there is nothing outside of the turnover disparagement that Justin Fields doesn't have that Russell Wilson does, and yesterday was on display. Let's throw away the interception. That was not his fault. Crazy, wacky throw, gets knocked up in the air. Okay, first turnover of the season for Pittsburgh. They lost the turnover battle, still won the game, by the way. This offense with Arthur Smith is built for Justin. And the thing that to me I saw that was most intriguing yesterday is if you watch his spray chart, he threw more over the middle of the field than any Steeler quarterback realistically since Ben Roethlisberger in his prime. 8 different receivers had a reception. 6 of those had multiple catches. And I read off the names of the guys who were catching footballs. Calvin Austin, who had the big touchdown of 55 yards late in the game. Pat Freiermuth had multiple catches. George Pickens was involved. Heck, Najee Harris made 5 catches out of the backfield. When you go 25 of 32, and I understand he wasn't throwing dimes down the field 30, 40 yards, but the effectiveness and the zip that he had on the football, this offense looks so much different than they did last season with Kenny Pickett. They look so much different than they have in the last few years. And what are you going to tell Justin Fields if you put Russell Wilson back in? Look, we know you've played well, Justin. You've led us through a 3-0 record, and you had arguably the best performance of your career yesterday. But we're going to go with the old, aging veteran who's showing nothing in the last 3 years of his football career because we told him back in June that he was going to be the starting quarterback. Get out of here. There's no quarterback debate. It's Justin Fields or bust, and it's as simple as that.
I'm glad you're on the StreamYard because I can feel the heat.
I wish you guys were sitting side by side. Yeah. I got this text from Paul yesterday. Quote, will Paul ever believe Justin Fields has what it takes to be a quality NFL starter? Never say never, but never. So there's your response, Isaac. Paul, how say you?
All 3 victories followed the same pattern. Tight, physical game where the Steelers defense made plays that mattered late.
Yeah.
And that's, I think what we said before the season was the Steelers are going to win games where they can hold their opponent's point totals down. And that's what they're doing. They scored 20 points yesterday. That's their highest output of the season. Fields is improving. I just don't see this overarching, I just don't think he's going to be all of a sudden, bang, way better after a couple of weeks in year 5 than he's been through the first 4 years. Throwing the interception away, I'm fine. You're right. He probably shouldn't have thrown it right at the hand of Bud Dupree, but that happens sometimes.
He admitted fault for that. 1 turnover in 3 games. That's not bad. 3 yards in a cloud of dust. This is a Bill Cowher team if I've ever seen one. Oh, absolutely.
But Isaac makes a good point. And I think maybe you made the point. What is Wilson going to do? He hasn't shown anything in a little while. I'm just looking at quarterback floor. I still think Wilson has the higher floor. Fields, though, the ceiling certainly at this point probably higher. I don't know. He's maybe changed in my mind a little bit as far as keeping his job. I still don't see him as a long-term answer. I think he's 26 years old. I would still be looking for a quarterback in the offseason if I'm Pittsburgh, but he's done the job. They're 3-0.
Yeah. No, I think it's hard to argue. I think that he's done enough to keep the job. He's definitely not going to lose the job. And one of the things we said about that floor was we were worried about his turnover ratio and getting sacks, right? Mm-hmm. He threw his interception. Yes, it was a bad read. He had somebody over in the flat on the other side of the field. Sacks. He took a lot of sacks in Chicago. He's only taken 6 sacks in the first 3 games here in
He's
Pittsburgh.
Still oblivious in the pocket, but they're protecting him with play calling.
Yeah, and he can run the ball out. So, my headline was just in time, Steelers drain Chargers for 3-0 start. So I'm with Isaac here. I think that since he has the floor of Russell Wilson, he's got to keep playing because I want to see that ceiling. All right. Steelers travel to Indy to face the Colts next week. We'll see what happens if Russ's injury keeps, quote, air quotes on the radio, nagging him as we move into week 4.
The one I'm worried about is Alex Highsmith left the game with a groin injury late in the second quarter.
I'm not.
No, okay.
Because of Herbig. Because of Herbig, I'm not. Okay. That's the only reason I'm not. What I am worried about is, here's my headline coming out of Cleveland. Giant letdown as the Browns can't ignore the neighbors.
Another abysmal outing on Sunday. Deshaun Watson, the only quarterback who looked worse was Skylar Thompson, who at least had the sense to fake an injury to get out of the game. Watson was bad. He's legitimately on the hot seat. Jameis Winston didn't play too much in the preseason either, so I don't really know what he looks like in this Browns offense. I do know he's very visibly a vocal leader on that team. Yeah. He's the guy who's given the rah-rah pregame speeches. He's got a lot of guys coming around him. I don't know. Maybe Winston is the guy that, he was a former first overall pick, so all the physical traits are there, physical tools, and the necessity to do that. It might be time, man. It really might be time. Again, this is another one I told Isaac, look, he's going to get better. These are the Giants. The Giants made him look terrible. Or maybe he made the Giants look incredible after a team that did not look very good through 2 weeks.
I don't know.
The Browns, dude.
They look pretty bad. Isaac, how say you?
How about this headline? Ring, ring. Hey, Steelers, is Russell Wilson available? I say that somewhat out of malice, but really not. I mean, the big stat coming out of that game for me was 8 sacks from the Giants defense. And outside of Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns, this is not a defense that's going to knock your socks off. I think the offensive line was
Dexter Lawrence is good too.
And when you have a bad offensive line, you need to have a quarterback that can make quick decisions and fire the ball down the field. Deshaun Watson, you can just tell he doesn't have confidence. He's holding on to the football, trying to step up in the pocket and getting himself into sacks. This team's not going to make the playoffs with him, and they may not win 6 or 7 games with him. I mean, this was a get-right game for Cleveland to win 2 in a row after the debacle with Dallas. You only have 6 home games left now, and the schedule doesn't get any easier. This is going to be a tough hill to climb for the Browns.
Yeah, I agree. It's with that offensive line, I don't know that you could put Tom Brady back there and they're going to perform on offense. There's just too much going on. And if, like Paul was saying, if New York can get in there, I'm worried about a team with a decent defensive line.
You're right.
No Bills game this weekend because it happens tonight. Bills going against Jacksonville. Jacksonville has a good run defense. Jacksonville hasn't been very good this year, but give me, 10 seconds. What's your expectations in this game, Paul?
Bills win.
Okay.
You can have the other 9.
All right, deal. Isaac, how say you?
I think Bills win, but it's close. They haven't played Jacksonville all the last couple of years.
It's important.
Okay. Yeah. I got Bills 23-17. I'm excited for it. Erie, thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Nick Artman. I'm signing off for Paul Adams, Zach Isaac, Petcash, and Rich Smith. That's it. We're done. Have fun.
Walk you through your Medicare Advantage plan options. There's so